take here. Okay. Uh-huh. Who knows where did he go to get coffee? Yeah, I saw it was like some hazmat teams were there or whatever. I was coming from north. I had to take. Oh, oh really? They usually when they close it like that, usually somebody got killed. Oh, it was. Oh, it did. Okay. There was a spillage or something like that. So depending on the type of the spillage, yeah. Because closing I-25 is like major. Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, let's take 2 minutes for the prayer of presence, reconnecting with ourselves, with God. You just came in time for a prayer. Alba? Sesley? Is this? Oh, ideal. What's up? Okay. All right. Grab him. Here for, and then we're going back to Arvada for a little while, and then we'll see after that how to proceed and what to do. It's our lease expires here, and distractions we had with more and more often tenants using the upper floor. We're going to just try to figure something else out. How are you doing? A little bit more sleep would come handy, but you look beat. Today? Okay, yeah. The what? No, no, some of the stuff is scary over here. You know, like there's few that are like literally like a half an inch on it. Yeah, you have one over here as well. There's
this one too. Is not even.
Yeah, that one right above you. You see that? Like.
Where the light is. You can see it. Look, it's like right on the edge. It's not even touching the other. Oh, it's too short. Yeah. There's another one over here too.
Well, one day hopefully we are not here. Somebody's gonna jump too hard up there. Hello. Hey, buddy. Yeah, you can sit anywhere. It's interesting how everybody, like anybody who had any kind of Adventist upbringing, would first go to the last pew, like all the way in the back. Okay, so we were just about to start with and the first time practicing, you reconnect to the present moment where you are right now, to you being here, whatever happened this morning, whatever is going to happen later today, and then you reconnect to the presence of God. Pray. You a little bit on it, but you practice this every day, your spiritual, actually your life in every sense of the way is going to change immensely, I can tell you that. Oh, he did? Oh. He apparently finished. Hey. Communication with God. And the more you practice it, the more God starts to you. What's up? Yeah. That's quick, actually. If he was like 10 seconds ago, he was in the parking lot. Okay, prayer of presence. Let's start. 2 minutes. Close your eyes, clear your hands. Just feel your body in that chair. Feel your feet touching the ground. Remember, you are ground. Your body is made of the same elements, you belong to it. Feel your breath, your heartbeat. Now, without opening your eyes, just kind of look up. Don't raise your head, just raise your eyes up. And try to sense the presence of God. Right here in front of you. Try to see His smile. Know that you're loved and accepted and completely and fully unequivocally saved by His grace. Don't think, don't talk. Just be there with Him. I'll say a prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this time of your presence with us here. Thank you for knowing that your Spirit is already pre-ordered for us and we have it. And thank you for knowing that our future is going to be amazing as our present is already right now. Amen. All right. You have questions, huh? We'll talk later. That's fine. All right, so last week, without me, you guys, who's here last week? It was everybody else except was here. So we started talking about this concept of peeling the onions. Because here's the thing, all of the layers, like Shrek, remember that. All of us have different layers. Some layers are kind of slapped onto us in our upbringing. Some layers we adopted as adults for various purposes. Sometimes you need a professional layer. Sometimes you need a party layer. Sometimes you need an emotional layer. Sometimes you need a, I don't know, volatile layer. You know, all of us have anger inside of us that needs to be utilized every once in a while. But all of us have these different layers that are more or less complex. Now, when we talked about last week, they were talking about a faker and a dreamer layer, layers that actually shape our reality in a way that we don't even know. Today we're going to talk about two more layers of our personalities that we have that can be very destructive if we are not aware of it, and if we don't have the capability to push it in the background when it kicks in the foreground without us needing to have that. So let's start with the Bible verse from, oh no, wait, wrong Bible verse. I might have forgotten to put it here. Okay, anyways, go back. Open your Bibles and find 2 Corinthians chapter 3. Okay. My Bible got stuck. 2 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 18. Last verse of the chapter. Who would be so kind to read it out loud? Yeah, it's interesting. Usually the people who would jump to read are not here today. Don't have the app yet.
So all of us who have had the veil removed can see and reflect the glory of the Lord. And the Lord, who is Spirit, makes us more and more like Him, as we are changed into His glorious image.
Thank you very much. Let's read a little bit of a different translation. And we all, with unveiled face, behold the glory of the Lord, and being transformed into the same image from one degree of glory to another. Now, one thing that Paul is trying to say over here. You have a veil. All of us have a veil. What do you think this veil is referring to, actually, when you read this Bible verse? How do you understand it? What does it mean to see God with unveiled face? Excuse me?
Like your mask, your persona?
Okay, that could be it as well. You know, very often you see God through a perspective of who you are and how you perceive life. Okay, yeah, that could be it. What about the rest of you guys? How do you guys understand this idea that if you really want to experience the depth of your spiritual growth, you need to see God with an unveiled face? Have you ever worn a veil? Have you ever tried to see things through the veil? Do you even know what a veil is?
The wedding thing, right?
Yeah, huh? Yeah.
Habibi thing.
Very soon. Huh?
The Habibi thing.
Habib, yeah, okay, that, to a certain extent. But the idea is this, you don't have a clear vision of whatever you're looking at. Or another thing is everything is filtered through that veil. If you see everything through the white veil, everything around you is going to be painted white, for example. But Paul's idea is this. If you really want to understand the depth of your spiritual connection with God, first, you have to strip away all of the understandings that define how you understand God, who God is. Like, for example, Bible says God is love. A lot of people disagree that God is love. Why? How much love do you see in the Old Testament? I don't know. Come on, you guys are familiar with it. Like, let's say percentage-wise. Like 100% you see God's love the whole New Old Testament. So, and 0, God loves nobody in the Old Testament. How much, what would be the percentages you guys would say?
5, no, 50%. The new or the old?
Old Testament, Old Testament. Uh-huh.
50,
Huh?
50.
So 50-50. It's pretty brutal, you know? You see God who really loves his people, you know? But then you see him brutally massacring and genociding everybody else. You know, it makes you wonder, like, what in the world? And then in the New Testament, you read about God is love, and you see them writing about antichrists and expelling them from church and not letting them back in and so on and so on. This is the idea. This is the concept of an unveiled face that I mentioned. In order for you to really understand the core depth, nature of God, you first need to understand that everything you know about God is flawed. Not necessarily wrong. Not necessarily wrong, but veiled. Everybody, not everybody here, but more than half of you here were born and raised Adventists. So, there is an Adventist veil that we have. I remember when my first contact with spirituality was through Adventism. I didn't know anything else until later on in life I started studying other religions and other denominations and so on, you know. But my veil was very much Adventist, and I filtered everything through that. At one point in that early Christian upbringing, I really thought that anybody who doesn't obey the Sabbath, as Saturday, they're going to burn in hell. They're gone. They're losing their eternal life. They're done, you know. Because that is the veil. That's how the veil was painted for me by my very conservative small church that I first connected with God, you know. But then, later on, learning, reading, studying the Bible, praying, deepening my spirituality, I realized how ridiculous that idea is. But for a certain period of time, for me, that was the truth. So I had a flawed idea. I had like a good foundation. Yeah, Bible says Saturday is the seventh day that we should worship and so on, but a very flawed perception of how to interact with it, how everybody else interacts with it. So, your alter egos, to go back to the topic, your alter egos, our alter egos, all of us have them. They need to be managed properly, because if they're not, they're going to make decisions for you that you regret later on down the road in life. So let's start with the first one. George just left. Okay. There is a pleaser in every single one of us. We just want to please at some point either somebody or even everybody. So, John chapter 3, verses 1 to 4, familiar story. I would like us to talk about this a little bit. Now there was a man of the Pharisees named Nicodemus, the ruler of the Jews. This man came to Jesus by night and said to him, Rabbi, we know that you're a teacher who came from God, for no one can do these things that you do unless God is with him. And Jesus answered him, truly, truly, I say to you, unless one is born again, he cannot see the kingdom of God. And Nicodemus said to him, how can a man be born when he is old? Can he enter a second time into his mother's womb and be born? Now, this is a school example of a pleaser. Now, let's tell me, like, based on what we just read over here, describe me Nicodemus. What do you know about him? Excuse me?
I said I need a refresher.
Okay. Okay, just based on what we read over here, on what you see on the screen, what can you tell me about Nick? He is not a priest, but he is a ruler of the Jews. So he is like a, let's say, senator or a mayor or something like. He has like a prominent political leadership role. And he's not talking about Jerusalem over here. He says Jews. So we're talking about the nationwide context like this. He was a hotshot in that sense. So ruler. What else can you tell me about him, his character, his fears, his desires? What can you tell me based on these verses over here? Come on. Engage your imagination. Visualize him.
Seems well educated.
Exactly. Yep. He is well educated. He is, in that sense, he would be top 5% amongst his people. Okay, what else we know about him? Come on. Read! Like, seriously.
I gave mine.
What? Come on, guys. I don't mind making everybody uncomfortable. What else do you see or hear about him? What was his desire? Tell me about desire. What was his desire over here?
One second, I'm reading it. So. He was like curious to know like why he's able to
Do it once he's doing it. Like he just wants answers, basically.
So, Nicodemus is curious to talk to Jesus, question him, learn about him, understand who Jesus is, right? So Nicodemus has a desire, and that desire is to, who is this guy? Like, he's doing this crazy stuff. People are following him. He has this fresh teachings, and he was not taught. He didn't go to university. He didn't get his PhD. Who is this guy? Okay, go ahead.
He did it at night for a reason, so yeah.
Okay. Uh-huh.
It wasn't displayed.
Thank you very much. I was about to ask, what do you see as Nicodemus' biggest fear? Apparently over here, he does not want to be seen with Jesus. So he is perfectly fine to get to know him and connect to him, but he does not want to be seen with him. Okay, you guys tell me, what do you think? Based on the logic of everything we just talked about, Nicodemus, why Trump didn't want to be seen with Jeffrey Epstein, sorry. Very bad publicity, yeah. After he was asked, you remember that, after he was asked, like, hey, but you took a picture with him. I took a picture with many people. I don't know everybody. I take a picture with, you know. Now, we see same thing over here. So, bad publicity. Why would publicity matter to him? Say again?
For his credibility with the Jews.
Exactly. So his credibility is his bread and butter, you know? That's what actually makes him who he is, the ruler of the Jews. Re-election is coming. I can't really afford to be seen with Jesus, but Jesus can do some stuff, and he could maybe help me with my re-election as well. Who knows what was all in his mind, you know? But all we know about Nicodemus is this. He is a powerful figure, prominent, respected. When he says jump, Jews jump. Everybody knew him. And later on, in another part of the gospel, we see that that is exactly what Nicodemus does. They're sitting in the Congress, in Sanhedrin, as it's called in that time, and they're arguing how to get rid of Jesus. And Nicodemus is like, you know what? Nobody's going to get rid of him. If he is not from God, he's going to meet his demise. Anyways, if he is from God, I don't want to be a part of you idiots who want to go and fight the battle against God. And everybody's like, okay, cool, okay, fine, we'll leave him, we'll let him be. Nobody wanted to argue Nicodemus in the conference. He was like the guy. He had a desire to understand God on a different level. He saw God in what Jesus was doing. And he didn't understand, how is that even possible? When we are the ones who represent God for people, and God takes this nobody and he gives him all of these things. But I can't be seen with him. I can't allow myself to get in a situation to, you know, risk something like that. So he probably, I would assume, he had his personal guards with him. He had a cloak, maybe even a like veil on his face, whatever, so he's not recognized, and he sneaks in by night to meet Jesus. Now, tell me about the concept of a pleaser. Where do you see a pleaser? Is this how a pleaser looks like? How do you usually imagine a pleaser? Huh? Like what? Oh, looking at. Okay, I would argue that. I don't necessarily agree with that. Let's before I argue that, let's just describe, think about somebody who you know that they're a people pleaser.
Like a public figure.
Okay? Somebody who puts everybody else's needs before theirs. Okay, politicians definitely don't do that. Servants of the people, public servants. Okay, what else? This is a good one. Like, pleasers are always going to put somebody else's needs in front of their own. What else? How do pleasers look like? How do they act? How do pleasers say no?
They don't.
They don't. Yeah. You exactly know who to ask to borrow a truck for a move, you know? Because, yeah, he's not going to say no. I was about to say, just call Dickie. How else? Come on. Describe me a pleaser. They tend to be extroverted. Yeah, yeah, that's right. Thank you very much. This is very important. Yes, they're going to adjust their behavior depending on who they're surrounded with. Now, all of this describe how can this guy fit into being a pleaser? How can Nicodemus fit into being a pleaser? He is supposed to be he is the leader of the people. He is a hardcore authority. People listen to him, people follow him.
Did he, and this is more of a question, did he go to Jesus for himself, or did he go to Jesus because he needed answers for the people that were following him? So he was trying to please the few people that were following him, or was he trying to please his own need of understanding Jesus?
Based on the broader concept of the story, he was there for himself. And he was really making sure that nobody knows that he is there.
If you're a public figure and you want answers and you don't have the answers, but you have this certain statue that like you're like, hey, I'm a leader of these people, I need to have these answers. So I feel like he wasn't pleasing himself, but he was pleasing the people that were following him.
Okay, well, there is not that much information in the Bible to kind of address that. The one thing that is obvious in the Bible is that very early in Jesus' ministry, Nicodemus visits him and he talks to Jesus. Later on, Nicodemus is mentioned a couple more times in the Gospels, but he was never called out to be the one who was talking to Jesus. So apparently nobody knew about this little secret night encounter that he had with Jesus. You know? So it was probably his personal desire to just understand who this guy is. He's obviously very powerful. And then at one point when he's talking to the Congress, he says this, you know what, guys? You see what Jesus is doing. If this is from God, I don't want to be against it. Don't be stupid to go against him if this is from God. You know? So I would think that he really just wanted to get answers for himself and understand God's presence in the life of Jesus based on everything that he was doing. But at the same time, he did not stand for Jesus when Jesus was arrested. He did not stand for Jesus when Jesus was crucified. He did not stand for Jesus when Jesus was put in grave. He stood for Jesus after. He was the one who paid for the grave. Finally acknowledging that, okay, this was a man of God. But it took him a long, long term to step outside of his pleasing. Who was he pleasing here? If he was trying to please God, don't you think that he would stand up for Jesus sooner?
He's a public figure, so he couldn't.
Exactly. So who is he pleasing then? The people. He is pleasing the people he's ruling.
Well, what did he pay for it?
Huh?
That's confusing. That's the, like, it's kind of like the guy in the background, you know?
What do you mean?
You said he paid for his...
Yeah. No, later on he did that, and pretty much, again, Bible doesn't describe it, but I'm pretty sure the moment he stepped out public in support of Jesus is the moment where he lost the credibility and people's favor and everything else. But the key thing, why I took him as an example of a pleaser, is because he was basing his decisions not based on what he wanted, not based on what he needed, not based on what God's called purpose for him was. He was basing his decisions on what other people wanted, what other people thought it was right, and most of all, how other people saw him. So that is an alter ego that all of us have every once in a while. Every once in a while, every one of us wants to please. And frankly, there's nothing wrong with that. Like, it's actually beautiful when you want to please and serve, you want to help, you want to do something for somebody else. You know, it's great. It's really great to have that, unless it runs rampant, as in this case, and wreaks havoc in your life because you're not aware of it, and then you make your decisions thinking they're your decisions, but actually you're just making decisions that are based on what other people think of you or expect of you. Have you ever been there? Think of the last decision that you made because you were expected to do it. Can you remember something? Why did you do it? We don't have to discuss the details of what you did, but just think about it and tell me, like, why did you do it? You didn't want to, but you still decided to do it. Why?
I had to.
You had to. So were you forced into it? Nobody twisted your arm? Nobody put a gun to your back? Do it then.
Because I felt like I had to.
So you felt like you had to. There's a great deal of difference between I had to and I felt like I had to. I mean, even if somebody has a gun at your head, it's still your choice whether you're going to do it, at your personal demise or not, whatever, you know. A lot of times, I know some people who chose not to do it because there was a greater reward for them in not doing it and losing their life than doing it and causing more damage than just losing their life. But that's another story for another time. But there is a difference when you have to do something and when you feel. Do you mind sharing? Just like what made it feel that you really have to do it? Is it a peer pressure? Is it your boss? Is it family, parents? Is it like what?
Just have to like at some organizational thing, and no one else was speaking up, and then it just got awkward.
Oh, okay. So
We're just waiting for someone to answer. Yeah. So then I was like, I guess I'll do it.
Okay, so this was not something that you were pushed into by somebody else. This was something that you pushed yourself into. To please who? Did you do it for your boss? Okay. If you didn't say anything and the silence remained awkward, would anything be different in that meeting? So, you did something uncomfortable that nobody necessarily expected of you, but you felt to eliminate the uncomfortableness of it by making yourself uncomfortable. Kind of like that. Okay. So there was a greater deal of uncomfortableness sense than just kind of sacrificing your own. Okay. Okay. Do you guys think that was pleasing? Do you guys think that that fits into what we're talking about? Yes. Okay. Why?
She made herself feel
Okay.
it wasn't really for her, it was for somebody else.
Okay. All right. Okay. I would argue that. And here's why. I think that it's amazing because you just chose to step outside your for a greater good. If your boss told you, "Hey, listen, come on," you know, then there would be a pressure on it. Like you could tell him, "No, I can't," whatever. think it's right, but you still do it because you don't want to disappoint somebody. That is more of it. In this case, this guy, as powerful as he is, as independent as he can stand by himself and on his own, what he does is please people who don't even necessarily care much about it. A lot of Jews accepted Jesus afterwards. He was just ahead of the curve when he accepted Jesus in the beginning. But his fears and assumptions led him to think that the people he's trying to please want him to act differently. So he didn't stand up for Jesus any sooner. What I want you to think about is your pleaser. Like, very often we are pleasing to people who are either authorities in our lives or who we really care for. Families tend to be strong sources of creating pleasers. You know, when your parents, they can't make you do stuff, but they can guilt trip you into it. Right? Been there ever? Yesterday I was tired yesterday. I was getting ready to go to bed, and it was like 8 p.m. I just had a little sleep before that. So I'm like, I don't want to sleep yet. I don't know what to do. So I was listening to some stand-up comedy. And there was one Asian guy. I can't remember his name, but he was talking about Asian parents. Like, oh no, that guy, anyways. But he was talking about how his parents guilt trip him like deep into his 30s to still do stuff that they want him to do by making him feel really bad about the stuff that he's doing. Not even about the stuff that they want him to do, but simply about the stuff that he is doing. Have you ever been guilt tripped by your parents to stuff? How does it feel? Huh? Annoying? Okay.
Like you're doing something wrong.
Like you're doing something wrong? Okay. Why do you still do it?
Get them off my back.
Get them off your back. That's a good motivation. Okay. You can also get them off your back by saying, hey, you know what, I'm not going to do this.
That's a gateway to an argument.
So it's like not worth it. No, just do it. Okay.
If it's not super troublesome, might as well just go along with it. But like if it's worse, like trying to contradict it, then sure. But most of the time, it's really not.
It's all. Okay. Then this is the last question about the pleasers. So we see this guy over here. Like Nick could have fixed stuff sooner, and maybe some things would have been different if he responded how he was supposed to in the context of him supporting Jesus, but he didn't. He did it after his death. Now, where do you draw a line? Where do you draw a line into saying, okay, this is where my pleasing ends? Okay? So when it just feels wrong, you feel you're being taken advantage of, it's like, no, I'm not even going there. Okay, what about the rest of you? Where does the pleasing end?
It's too much. There's consideration, like they're not being considerate.
Okay, all right. So there is too much of a one-way traffic in a relationship, kind of like that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Once I got older, I realized I valued different things than my mom did, so I just kind of made different decisions.
Elaborate, please.
I think once I got maybe to like college was when I realized that my points of views were just different than hers.
Uh-huh.
So going like through what she wanted me to do with life didn't make sense for me.
Okay, all right.
So then that's when I was just like, no, I'm not doing that.
Oh, okay, all right. Okay, so the idea is, like when on a core level of understanding of life, the one you're trying to please and you are diverging paths, that is the end. Like there is no more kind of following.
I mean,
How did that make your mom feel?
very long, sad, crying, she'll try to like make me do the things and be like, no. She's like, okay.
So, what was more uncomfortable, doing it or not doing it? Like doing what she says or not doing what she says?
Doing what she said.
And you see that, thank you very much. This is where I think that the big difference is when you are aware that I have a tendency to be a pleaser in certain situations with certain people and whatnot, but you kind of draw a line of like, I mean, same thing what you said, like the relationship that we have is way, they're taking too much out of it or whatever, but it's more uncomfortable to go with it than to go against it. Now, if you have your lines clearly kind of drawn and you know exactly where you stand, it's much easier because then you have the ability to kind of foresee it and you can kind of step back from pleasing before it even happens. Because once you step into uncomfortable of going against yourself is where you actually experience substantially more pain and a setback. And the worst thing that comes with it, you know what that is? Resentment. You know how you feel resentment toward people who made you do things? And then the older you are, and the more you go with that pattern, the more resentment creates. And then eventually, things just explode, and it's gone. And it's done. There's no more going back, but it could have been fixed if you addressed the pleasing at the right time. Make sense? All right. What I... Excuse me?
You don't need to be selfish.
Absolutely. Like when Jesus says, love your neighbor as yourself. You know? In order for you to love other people, you need to love yourself first. And in that context, taking things for yourself, taking time for yourself, focusing on yourself is not selfish. It's actually necessary for you to be able to love other people. Okay, the second one that I'd like us to talk about today is the stumbler.
The what?
Stumbler. Matthew 26. Oh, is that all? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, it's going to be enough. That's fine. Okay, first, before we read this, so you can find Matthew 26 verses 69 to 75, but I think this is only the last two verses that I put in here. Stumbler is a person that constantly ignores and all of us have this stumbler haunting us every single day. But if you don't know how to manage it, it can be extremely destructive. So, somebody please, actually, if you have your Bibles open, somebody please read from 69 to 75. I'm going to just grab a cup of water in the meantime. Somebody read, seriously, come on.
Now Peter was sitting out in the courtyard, and a servant girl came to him. You also were with Jesus of Galilee, she said. But he denied it before them all. I don't know what you're talking about, he said. Then he went out to the gateway where another servant girl saw him and said to the people there, this fellow was with Jesus of Nazareth. He denied it again with an oath. I don't know the man. After a little while, those standing there went up to Peter and said, surely you are one of them. Your accent gives you away. Then he began to call down curses. And he swore to them, I don't know the man. Immediately a rooster, a rooster?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. A rooster crowed. Then Peter remembered the word Jesus had spoken. Before the rooster crows, you will disown me 3 times. And he went outside and wept bitterly.
Thank you very much. Over here we have a school example of a stumbler. Now, Peter should be more familiar to you. You should know him a little bit better. So let's talk a little bit about Peter. What do you know about Peter? Come on, tell me. Everything you know about Peter. Let's have it out. He was a fisherman, okay? He was one of Jesus' disciples, one of the prominent ones actually, okay? What else? You know nothing about it. Okay, that's
I know Bible studies like you.
He wasn't married, right?
He was married, okay?
Oh, he was.
Huh?
I didn't know. I thought he wasn't married, but he was.
Oh no, he was married. Well, there's a joke. You know why actually Peter denied Jesus, betrayed Jesus?
Why?
Because he healed his mother-in-law.
He healed his mother.
Yeah, there's like
Oh.
Mark has a story where like they went to Peter's house, and Peter's mother-in-law was sick, and Jesus came and healed her. Peter never forgave him that one.
That's funny.
Okay, what else do we know about Peter?
He was, like a really big follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
Very devoted.
Yes, he was very close to Jesus, and Jesus kept him really close to his heart. He was very loud, very outspoken about his support for Jesus. What else do you know about him? Yeah, he was the one who cut the ear. So he was the one who had concealed carry. All right, we have a little bit of a perspective of who he is. Now, he was Galilean, which means that he was a Jew, but kind of he was like that, like low-class Jew. If you, they were like from the north of the country, so when they would go down to Jerusalem, they would look at them as hillbillies. That's kind of, huh? The hood Jew, yeah. No, not the hood Jew. It's more like a redneck Jew. Yeah, that would be like, yeah. But as being like that, interestingly enough, his national pride was substantially more developed than the Jews in the capital. Because Jews in the capital were constantly in contact with other nations, trading, doing this and that. So they were much more open to other nations around them. Jews in the outback, not so much. What was his social status? Middle class, pretty much. He was like a small business owner. So he had a boat, he was fishing, then he dropped that to follow Jesus. But he was like a typical middle class small business owner. Yeah. Yeah, he's the one that walked on water and then started like slipping away and drowning, and then Jesus saved him. But one of the most important things about Peter is understanding of who he thought Jesus was. So, Jesus is asking them at one point, maybe you guys remember that. Hey guys, so what do people say, who am I? And they're like, oh, you're Elijah, you're John the Baptist, you're another of these prophets of the old. And then Jesus says to them, okay, and who do you think? And this is just like this close circle of his friends. And who do you think I am? And Peter immediately spits out. He's like, you are the Son of the living God, you're the Messiah. Like, we know who you are. And Jesus is like, whoa, Pete, these are not your words. God himself spoke through you right now. You know? And when he says that, Jesus starts telling them, listen guys, I really got to tell you something. So some things are going to change. Very soon, they're going to arrest me. They're going to put me in prison. They're going to kill me. But rest assured, I'm going to raise from the dead. In that moment, Peter jumps up. What? That's not going to happen to you. God forbid that happens to you. And then Jesus yells at him, get away from me, Satan. In literally a few minutes, Peter was at the same time the voice of God and the voice of Satan. But here's why. Peter believed in Jewish Messiah. He didn't believe in biblical Messiah. He believed in Jewish Messiah. A lot of Christians don't believe in biblical Messiah. They believe in American Messiah. Or just even a Christian Messiah is a very different thing than a biblical Messiah. Perfect example. If you vote red, you are most likely a Christian. That's like a basic expectation, right? That's what you immediately assume, right? Why? Because political affiliation and religious affiliation pretty much go hand in hand. If you vote blue, you're definitely going to be on the liberal end of the spectrum.
If you're blue, you're he, she, her.
Exactly. Yeah, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So using pronouns and whatnot, you know. But kind of just focusing on the religious. A lot of Christians today, they don't really believe in Jesus from the New Testament. Majority of Christians believe in this Christian Jesus that we are introduced to pretty much in our society. And that is Jesus who is engaged in politics. That is Jesus who is supporting certain social values that Americans are spreading and so on. Not Jesus who says stuff that he says in the Bible. Peter had the same problem. He believed in a political Messiah. And he really thought Jesus is a political Messiah who is going to become an actual king and actually liberate them from political reign of the Roman Empire. So, what happens in his stumbling that we just read over here? Alva just described how prominent follower of Jesus he was. And now he betrays him not once. Like Judas betrayed Jesus once. Peter betrays him 3 times, and the 3rd time he's using the F words. That's how the Bible says over here. I don't effing know this effing guy. Why? Why did he stumble? If he was so strongly in his favor. On top of it, what Josh mentioned. Yes, so they come to arrest Jesus. Now look at this. They come to arrest Jesus. It's night. They're over there in the garden. Suddenly they see flashlights. They see people with guns and armed coming to arrest Jesus. And Peter is like, nobody's going to do anything. And he takes his sword. He charges the crowd. Like there were soldiers there. There were trained soldiers there who would have killed him on the spot. He was not afraid. Like he was charging in the name of Jesus to put his life down to defend Jesus. And he hits this one guy. He cuts his ear off. And Jesus is like, hold up. Hold up. Get away from him. He takes the ear and he heals this man.
So he's very, from what I hear, from day one to everything, he's been very impulsive.
He's been very impulsive. He's been very supportive. He was ready to sacrifice everything he's got for Jesus. And then he gets here. How did that happen? How did he stumble? What caused the man of this great vision, energy, strength, fearlessness to stumble like this?
Do we need any more background? Or?
Excuse me?
I feel like I'm missing something. Do we need more stories or?
I don't know. No, actually, I don't think so.
I
No.
don't think so. Because I mean, it's.
Makes no sense.
I don't know, fear,
Fear of what?
prosecution, or maybe he just had a different perception of who Jesus was, like he was untouchable, and then here he was actually getting prosecuted.
this is, yes, thank you.
I think he was more looking in the flesh, like, you know how kind of like not Israel, sorry. Like we always have something we want to praise, like as humans we always want like an idol, right? And I feel like he wanted that in that flesh to idolize him, but in the flesh, but not in the spirit. Maybe, I don't know.
Okay, interesting thought actually. Because here's what happens. So, Peter expects Jesus to be king of the Jews. And when identity of Jesus started crumbling, when he was arrested, when he was beaten, when he was taken down from one courthouse to the other, the identity of Jesus that Peter built for himself started falling apart. Peter didn't have anything to believe in anymore. He really believed Jesus is the Messiah. But he didn't believe he was the Messiah that Jesus said he was. Jesus says, my kingdom is not of this world. And Peter is like, no, your kingdom is going to be here. This is going to, you're going to be ruling here. Jesus says, lay your life down for your friends. And Peter is ready to do that, but he's ready at the same time to take life. Peter is a stumbler because not of who he was, but of a misunderstanding of who Jesus was. You will stumble in your spiritual experience if you don't have a very clear and sharp understanding of who Jesus is. That's why you will see, and we'll see this yet again in November. Who knows how these elections are going to go? We'll see. But you will see again a lot of religious hype within everything that's happening right now. And then, let's say Trump loses, you're going to see a lot of bashing, hatred, a lot of negative emotions from people who committed themselves to love everyone in the name of Jesus. Why? Because Jesus, for a lot of people in this country, definitely doesn't look like the Jesus as we read about him in the New Testament. Yes, we have this idol of a Christian Jesus that we worship in this country that represents social values of contemporary American culture rather than biblical values that are timeless in the presence of an everlasting God. And that's why a lot of people are going to stumble. That's why a lot of people are going to maybe not lose their faith, but definitely struggle with what in the world is happening, why did God abandon us, and so on. So, let's talk about your stumbling. Now he's quiet. All he needed was a screen time. Yeah, you have to give him the phone. That's what a relief. And he knows we're talking about him. Look at him. Now, let's talk about your stumbling for a moment. So, the stumbling that's going to happen in your lives, in a spiritual context, but also in a deeper context of your kind of encompassing all of your life is this. So, this is who you are, and this is who you want to be. And if there is a disconnect between who you are and who you want to be, you're going to constantly have this problem as Peter had it. Because who you are right now, for a moment, think about who you are. Who created who you are right now? Excuse me?
God.
To what extent?
Our surroundings.
Surroundings, to what extent? Who really built who you are right now? Can you take the credit? Are you who you are because of yourself or because of other people? Both? What is the prominent? Okay, this is becoming a little bit depressing. What is the prominent influence that shaped you into a person you are today?
Your experiences. God and your environment around you.
God, environment, what did you say?
Your experiences.
Experience, you said parents. Okay. Maybe you're too young then, I
Genetic
guess.
disposition.
Genetic predisposition, yeah. I disagree with everything that you said right now. I think that you are who you are right now, mostly because of you. You stopped listening to your parents long ago. You still listen to them to a certain extent, you know, but they don't make your decisions anymore. You make your own decisions. Yeah, your decisions might be influenced by the way you're raised, but at the same time, you're still the one calling the shots, right? You picked your career, right? You pick what you're going to eat today, right? You pick who you're going to be tomorrow, right? Nobody picks it for you. The environment is going to have its influence, but the older you are and more aware you are of this, less environment is going to influence you. God is going to have his part as well, to the extent as much as you invite him in and allow him to. But the bottom line is, who you are today is because of you.
See, I disagree because
I gotta go back to work because lift broke on us and I gotta go with it.
Have fun.
I disagree because everyone's dealt different cards and you choose the best cards that you have.
Okay,
You can't choose different cards if you don't have those cards.
okay, all right.
So you're just using the best.
Who is choosing the cards?
Not you.
Huh?
Not you.
Wait, the cards that you have in front of you, who is choosing them?
Well, you're not. You are choosing the cards that you're dealt with.
Exactly.
But the cards that you're given, yours not your choice.
But you still have a palette of cards that is in front of you. Victor has a different palette of cards. Alba has a different palette of cards. You have opportunities that are in front of you. Who is making the choice of those?
You are, but you're choosing the best out of the situation.
Exactly. Yes, but still, who is making the choice?
I get it, but it's very common sense based.
Okay.
Am I gonna go work in an oil field, or am I gonna go do something better, or whatever your choices are, right?
Okay.
Everyone has different choices.
Okay.
Just like someone in North Carolina has different choices than me here in Colorado, whatever it is.
Okay.
So, but yeah, keep going. I disagree, but it's fact.
No. I don't want us to agree to disagree. I want us to clear this out because here's why.
I agree with what Philip's saying. So I think it's both. It's you, so you have a choice, but then it's also environmental. And so you, obviously, it's like the nature versus nurture type of thing. right?
Okay.
So it has a lot to do with like who you are as a person and like what you decide for yourself, but it also is your environment and what's around you and like what you're raised with, and then you decide from what's your environment, what you learn, your experiences with people that are in your environment, what decisions you get to choose from.
Okay, let me ask you
So
this.
if you're never exposed to something, then that's never a choice for you.
Okay, makes sense. Yeah. We are all born and raised in different circumstances. I lost almost a decade of my life because I was not born here. I had to come here. I had to spend a lot of time kind of treading water until I got my green card and actually managed to start to live my life the way I wanted to, you know?
If you didn't change that status quo and just used the cards that you were dealt with, you wouldn't even be here.
That is true as well. Yes, indeed. But and okay, I agree to a small degree to what two of you are saying, because here's the thing. The environment is malleable, and you can reshape it to your needs. And here's what I mean. There are two ways you can look at your environment. You can be, actually three ways that you can look at your environment. You can be a product of your environment. That is what two of you are talking about. You can be a creator of your environment. That is what I'm talking about. And third, the worst case is you can be a victim of your environment. And all three of those depend on you, what choices you make with the environment that you have.
So I was talking with Roy and I was saying exactly that. I was like, what's the difference between Batman and Joker? Nothing. There's no difference between Batman and the Joker. They're a product of their environment.
I didn't think you were going that way.
But it's true. Like, you can be the superhero of your own demise and do good with it, or you can let it rot you and then focus on the bad. So they're both messed up in the head, but it just, they have more in common than you think. The only difference they have is the choice of what happened to you.
Well, yes, so all of us are,
So why so serious?
nice. All of us start as victims of our environment. Then we evolve. Once we understand our ability to choose, we evolve into products of our environments, but as a product of your environment, you still allow yourself to give your power away to the environment. And the problem that I see with what two of you have said is this. If your environment abruptly changes outside of your ability to control it, that means that you are going to change as well, right?
You adapt to it.
I think what you're describing is like an awakening.
Okay?
Because I agree with what you're saying, and I was thinking about what Philip and Alba were saying too. And I think when you wake up, you could create whatever changes you need to. But I think obviously it's hard when you want to make those changes. Like, show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Okay.
Sometimes like you think like all there is what you're currently surrounded by with, but I think we all come to a point where we make a choice. Do we want to stay in our environment or do we want to move on?
Okay.
And like you said, it's maybe they chose to be a victim or they chose to be, I forgot the other two that you
Product,
said.
yeah. I said creator.
Yeah, so I think when you wake up, then, and if you want to stay where you're at, then that's your choice. But I think, well, especially in the United States, because I can't speak to other countries, we all have that choice to either leave the state, go to a different state, completely change your environment, go work at McDonald's, but leave the state,
Yeah.
and then educate yourself because everything's online now.
Yeah.
So I think what you're describing, at least what I'm seeing, is like an awakening to that.
That's an interesting word that you're using. We can talk about it sometime in the future. But this is kind of the point that I was trying to make. The prominent denominator in who you are is not environment. Environment is one of. It's not your upbringing. It's one of. The real prominent changer of who you are is you. Because in the end, you are the one that is making a choice. Yes, we are dealt, sometimes we get a bad deck, you know, and things like really go, whoa. That doesn't mean that you're stuck in it, especially in this country, definitely. Looking back how life was back in Serbia in the 90s and 2000s, when I was there, like there's a lot of things that you're just dead on stuck, that's it. But even then there was a way out. It was just more volatile and it was more radical than you have to have it here. Let's look at this. So Philip gets out of college all cocky and exciting, and he's going to change the world and make $1 million by the age of 30, and then he gets hit with cancer. And then he gets over that and he gets hit with cancer again. What did you do? Overcome, didn't you? Like there was a lot of things that was completely outside of your ability. That was a bad deck. But still, you could have been a victim of it and let it eat you away.
What, Medicare and Medicaid?
Yeah, or what? Yeah, just get some welfare going, and yeah. Or you could do what you did, get over it, and use it as a learning experience to know better and to build stronger and so on. You know, that's an example. Now, when we talk about the stumbler, what happens with the stumbler is this: Stumbler like Peter, he didn't know the difference between who he was and who he wanted to be. He really thought he was this great guy who was on the side of Jesus, who was doing the right things. When it turned out that Jesus was not who he thought Jesus was, he also realized that he was not who he was. And that's why he betrays over here Jesus 3 times, because he does not associate with God who he was just introduced to. He does not associate with a suffering God. He does not associate with a dying Messiah. Not my God, not my president. You know? But the problem for him was that he had a deep personal experience with Jesus that showed him that he is the real deal. But he had to come to terms with the facts that he didn't see himself right, because he didn't see God right. And over here, when challenged to acknowledge his identity, he denies his identity, because that is not his identity at all. And when curses come out, this is like where his true redneck Galilean nature, fisherman language, comes back and reminds him of who he is. And that's why he, what does it say? And he went out and wept bitterly.
So with Peter, what's the difference of who he is versus who he was supposed to, or who he is versus who he can be?
So,
Was his mindset or what?
the difference was misunderstanding, first in the identity of a God he believed in, and then misunderstanding in his own identity. Who is he supposed to be within his belief in God? We stumble in life. Anytime, and what is stumbling? When you do something that goes against the things that you value. Or tell me, how do you understand when somebody stumbles in life? How would you describe it? Give me an example. Or describe it your own.
Like barely making it, but not really.
Oh, okay, that's not what I'm talking about. No, that was not in my mind. It's more of an idea of acting unnaturally to you. Like, for example, you really strongly believe in some social value. Let's talk about immigrants. You know, I saw you were kind of like right there, and then it kind of like clicked. Yeah, I strongly, and seriously, that's what we've been doing for like a long time now, for like a year. We've been actively engaged, and our church was actively engaged into helping all of these refugees figure their lives out. Now, if I was asked, for example, to deny them food at the church, hey, you know what? We're saving this food for the homeless. You know, don't give any to the refugees. And I know that there is enough food for both, and I choose not to give them any food. That would be a stumble. That's what I'm talking about. I would act contrary to my beliefs. I would act contrary to my values. And essentially, with my action, I would deny my own nature. Does that make sense? So, that's what I'm asking you. When do you stumble? Give me some examples of it doesn't have to be personal, but give me some examples of when people usually stumble.
I think when we focus on work too much and forget.
Sorry, say again?
When we focus on work too much and we don't begin our own heads.
Just get your hand off of your mouth. I couldn't hear anything you
Really
said.
sorry. When I focus on work too much and get my own head, and then that's my main focus, and then I see the opportunity to help people because I'm a Christian and I don't.
Okay, all right, that's a good example, yeah. Prioritizing work over actually helping doing something for somebody. Yeah, okay. Come on, more. Give me more stumbling examples.
Your values, maybe you, like obviously an easy one for me, like after what Philip said, was like if you're constantly working on Saturday, you know, right? Or like the day that you take for God.
Mm-hmm.
You start focusing on work more money, you kind of stumble, you're like, oh man.
Okay, good example. Thank you very much. Yeah. What else? How do you were as a kid? Do you ever spank him?
I try not to,
Try not to. Why?
because I was hit a lot.
Bad memories,
Yeah.
like traumas from childhood.
Yeah.
She's gonna switch a little bit, you know?
I know, I see a chance I twitch a little bit.
I think I was maybe spanked by my dad, maybe like a half a dozen of times in my upbringing. I remember every one of those. Like seriously, that's brutal. That's like once in 2 years, but it's memorable. So, for example, your mom, ask him, come on, quiet him down, spank him.
No, my mom does not want me to hit him.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just hypothetically.
Okay.
Your dad, whoever, you know? What would be a stumble?
It would be a stumble,
What would be a stumble?
not hitting him.
What do you think? I'm asking. Like, what would?
I think she missed that whole conversation.
Okay. Oh, all right. Okay. Never mind then. Okay. No, but the whole point is acting against what you value. That is what a stumble is. And you act against what you value when you're really not sure about what your identity is. Peter thought something was his identity. The moment that crashed, when Jesus was arrested, he completely lost himself. Because suddenly all of the values he had crumbled down with Jesus being gone. And he's pretty much just resetting to the last thing that he remembered when he was a cursing fisherman. You know, and he just goes back to that. But the whole point is, this is the problem with the stumbler alter ego. Stumbler alter ego is going to deceive you, actually, that you're doing just fine. That you're exactly where you're supposed to be and you're doing things exactly how they're supposed to be, until you realize that your actions, that the way you look at other people, that the way you treat other people actually don't really match what you feel is right, what you know is right. That's why I brought up the elections. Because we will, and I don't know to what extent are you guys going to be caught up in it, but you will see a lot of that coming, where a lot of loving Christians are going to become less and less and less loving the closer we are getting to the election. Because their identity is not wrapped into New Testament Jesus, but it's much more wrapped into an American flag. You know? Now, in kind of with that thing in mind, think of yourselves as well. What defines your identity? Who is really, like, say, the guiding star of your spirituality? Is it Jesus of New Testament with loving, compassionate, accepting spirit? Or is it Jesus of potentially your church or this country that is really not so necessarily nice? It's very important to have clarity of not just who you think you are, but who you really are. Peter didn't know who he was until he started acting on it. And then his actions revealed to him that he was not who he needed to be. And the end of the verse says, and he went out and wept bitterly when he remembered, when he realized what kind of an a-hole he actually is. So my point is, it's very important to recognize the stumbler within you guys. Because the stumbler is the worst kind of deception, where you think you're right, but your actions reveal differently. That is that void that I'm talking about. The stumbler is not aware of that void. The stumbler is going to say it's perfectly fine to hate all them Mexicans that crossed the border and took our jobs. You know? But he's going to go to church, he's going to sing songs, and he's going to praise Jesus. Praise Jesus. You know what I'm talking about, you know? So the idea is, see yourselves through your actions and catch the stumbler before he stumbles you.
Well, and sometimes I was going to say, sometimes if you don't catch it in time, learn from it.
True as
Self-awareness.
well. Yes, exactly. Yes, the self-awareness part plays a huge role, because we will always, here's the thing, the void will always exist between who you are and who you want to be. But when you are aware of that void, that's something that you work on. Like, for example, I know who I want to be. I'm not there yet, but I know who I want to be. I see myself being that one in the future. And now I'm pursuing to get there. But the problem that a lot of people have is they think that one that they want to see in the future, they think that they're, oh, yeah, I'm all good. I'm exactly the one that I'm supposed to be.
But do you feel like the things that you know, so like the person who you are now versus the person who you're supposed to be, you can be there if you, not saying like being denial in certain ways, but I think the only difference is you not thinking you're worthy enough to be that person also, and other things like that. Maybe
Elaborate. What do you mean not thinking being worthy?
people don't think that they can get there, that it's unattainable also.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay.
Because like, you know, when you're a kid and you're like, I'm gonna be this grown up, versus who you think who you are now is exactly who you could be, but you as a kid had a different perspective of who you thought you were gonna be as an adult.
Okay, all right. We talked a little bit about that before, like
Yeah.
before we got here.
But no worries.
There is an element of unattainability in a horizontal world that we live in, but that element pretty much dissipates within the realm of God's presence. But I think that's another topic for another time. We don't have time to talk about that. But the idea is, you know, all of that stuff that you're told, hey, you can be whoever you want to be, that is absolutely true. The problem is the method, you know, how to get there. But again, topic for another time. So, at least for today, thank you for excruciatingly participating in this discussion. But it was good. In the end, everybody said something that's pretty cool. I really challenge you guys to think about who you really are. It's hard. That is the hardest answer ever to it. But in the meantime, work on your alter egos. Work at least on your pleaser. Make sure that you have your lines clearly delineated so you're not being drawn down by the pleaser, and definitely think about your stumbler. Be constantly aware of that void between who you are and who you want to be, and pursue who you want to be, you know? But don't let yourself be swayed, especially in your spiritual life, by a God that doesn't actually exist. Make sure you know identity of your God as well. Any questions? Excellent. Let's have a prayer, and let's take another minute for the prayer of presence, and then Victor, can you close with a prayer? Lovely. Okay, same thing as last time. Close your eyes, clear your hands. Feel yourself in that chair. Just raise your eyes up, being closed, and look up to God. And just enjoy silence with Him.
guide us through our lives and help us grow and continue to search for you. I pray that we all have a good coming week and rest of the weekend. And thank you for always being there for us. In your Lord I pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Oh.
You're teaching me